Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. UNN is the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth, because that is what we're here to do, restore our beautiful planet and educate and inform in the process. So we have a newscast that comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday where we discuss the real news. And if you want to see those newscasts in their entirety, you can visit our website at unitednetwork.earth. You can become a member and get all of the news immediately as it comes out. If not, we do post our newscast to both YouTube and Rumble a week after they're released through our app. We talk about things I promise you won't hear anywhere else, and today is no exception. So this podcast itself is a week in review. The newscast can run anywhere between, 2 hours long or so. And we know that that's a lot of information for you guys to consume, process. You guys have busy schedules and different things going on in your life. And so what I try to do with this podcast is condense things down so you get the highlights of what we talked about throughout the week. So it's a little bit easier to digest, especially if you miss some of the newscasts or you're not a member yet. And this is also a great opportunity for you to share UNN with other people. So we encourage you guys to do that. On this podcast, we're going to highlight all types of stories. That includes local stories as told through the eyes of our field messengers. We talk about things that are upcoming and happening even now with this transition that we're having to what we call the new Earth. So what we want our planet to look like. And there are people doing amazing things that people just aren't sharing. The word is just not getting out there. And we have experts come on. I say experts, but really they're just really passionate people about topics that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Topics that teach you more about your body and who you really are as a human. And your incredible, what I call superhuman abilities that are now starting to come back online. And the amazing things we can do with our planet and help each other out. And these are more inspirational stories. We also have regional stories of what's happening around the world now. So some of the more headline-y type of stories. And then we have our World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. Some really interesting things we're going to talk about today. And I'll include some sound bites from Kim as well. We have access to the highest security clearance on the planet. That is how we get access to this information. Everything was coming through a system called the Alpha system, which Kim has access to. And now the Alpha system is being transformed into the Light system. So we had the Alpha and Omega. That should sound familiar to anyone who is familiar with various religious texts. And in order to get rid of the Omega and all the little tentacles and programs that were associated with Omega, we now have the Light system. And we're integrating that as we speak. So that's how we know what we know. We have access to meetings, people talking, things like that, that people don't even know that we can listen to, right? So high-ranking generals and groups you've probably never even heard of unless you listen to our newscast on a regular basis. So high-level stuff, guys. As we share this information, I encourage you all to think critically, to ask questions. And if stuff's, just kind of seems a little bit too far out there, that is okay. Just put that information to the side. Take the information that you're able to process now and run with that. Maybe the other things will start to make sense over time. At least that's how it was with me when I first got into all this. It's baby steps, okay? All right. Any announcements? Today is our 60th episode for this podcast, which is pretty good. I think I made the announcement on our 50th episode, so maybe every 10 episodes I'll make another announcement. Yay, it's our 60th episode. Let me give you an overview of what we're going to talk about in today's episode, because I do think it's going to be a longer one, especially when we get to the World Situation Report. So here's the overview. We have field messenger reports from Uganda, Mexico, a couple different places in the United States, as well as Romania. In the New Earth, we are going to talk about your frequency first aid kit. healing with your voice, the ability to do that, and weight loss, the biggest weight loss secret, according to our health coach. And that's not some crazy pill that you have to take. It's actually more about reconnecting with your body, doing things all natural here. In our regional stories, we have a bunch of different stories that we cover through the newscast. So I grouped these together into categories. We have a lot of information and stories about schools and education, also marriage and relationships. We have some new laws that are changing in various countries I wanted to update you on, and some interesting things happening in news and media. And then finally, in our world situation report, I mentioned we've got several sound bites with Kim. Some of these sound bites are a little bit longer, and there was no way to really cut it up. It was just going to be easier to play the whole thing. So we are talking about black pyramids in Alaska, which if you haven't heard of, you are in good company because most people haven't heard of this before, but they did exist. I guess the pyramids are still there, but the technology behind them has been taken out, but we're going to let you know what the deep state was up to there. Also, what are black operative farms? You guys heard that term before? What are the farms and what are their connection to past presidents? How did all that operate? And also, of course, we're going to keep you updated on the deep state's antics. Right now, they're pretty much just trying to take over the financial system of planet Earth and failing miserably. All right, are we ready to get started? Today is June 29th, 2024. Here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. Okay, we're kicking things off with our field messenger reports. You guys, our field messengers are truly what United Network News is all about. It is a vision to see past the mainstream media and how they have attempted to control everything for a very long time, control the narrative. They send their own correspondents to cover these stories. And that's how we were able to be misled for so long. So we think the best way to avoid that and prevent that from happening again is you telling your own stories of what's happening in your community. You know, I went to school for journalism. You know, I did the 4-year education thing. I did a lot of internships. And I can tell you that you don't need a 4-year degree. You don't have to go through all these internships in order to be able to pull out your phone and tell people what is happening on your street, in your community, with the people you live with. So let's start doing that. Let's really take the power back from the powers that were, because they're not the powers that be anymore, because that's active, and they're not in power anymore. I know sometimes it feels like they are, but they're not. It is time for us to take things back over in a positive way and reconnect with each other as well. So the field messenger reports are a great way to do that. Some of these stories are more what some people would consider newsworthy stories. Some are just sharing what's happening in their community. Maybe they're festivals and fun things that are going on, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere. We're in the midst of summer, right? So a lot of fun things go on. But it's about reconnecting with one another, sharing our culture, our history. And it's a really beautiful thing. So if you haven't submitted a report before, you can go to our website at unitednetwork.earth and learn a little bit more about that process. You don't need any training to do it. And like I said, we all have these cell phones, right? Most of us have these cell phones that we can just pull out, record some video, and, tell us what's going on. So in each newscast, we have a couple different stories. On Monday, the stories were, we had one story from Mwanda Michael. He is in Uganda, and he checks in with a family member, and I'm not sure if this is a niece. I kind of got that impression, but I might be wrong on that. But she has gone to school. She has just come back from her first semester, and he checks in with her about how things are going. And they're not going so well. And the issue is teachers. So according to this family member of his, a young girl, she says that they have enough teachers, but the teachers aren't really showing up consistently, which is making it difficult for the students to really learn, especially learn, get more deep in subjects, learn more subjects, multiple subjects, things like that. And so obviously, as we move forward with the new Earth, education, schooling. I know, some of these terms are a little controversial that I'm using, but being able to inform our children, and it's not just about children, it's about adults learning as well. That whole system is going to be changing. So right now, we're just kind of pointing out some of the things that need to be improved right now on our planet. And then also on Monday, Diane from Uganda teaches us how to cook something called matuki. Matuki is a popular dish in Uganda. It's used with various dishes. It's actually a plantain banana, if you guys are familiar with that, but they call it matuki. And she says almost all gardens in Uganda have one of these plants. And they pick the bananas, they place them in these large leaves, and they put a little bit of water in there, and they steam them. And then they take the leaves and they mash it down. And then this is something that is typically served with meat, vegetables, and sauce. So again, this is one of those stories just to get to know each other a little bit better. I don't know, maybe you want to try to cook it as well, even if you're not in Uganda. But I think these kind of stories are interesting. All right, on Wednesday, our field messenger stories, we heard from Abril in Mexico. I believe she said she was in Cancun. She happened to be going to a local community market and showed us what they had to offer. So this could, depending on how things play out, we may be in a position where we really have to rely more on our local communities to support one another. And so this is an example of how a community is doing it. They had food products, different services, different items that you could buy. One of the things I noticed is that everything was very colorful and beautiful. So that was lovely. They had a huge area for concerts, and if people, wanted to dance and, show off their skills that way, the local artists were there that, wanted to perform. And they even had an adoption festival for dogs and kittens who were looking for a new home. Also on Wednesday, Vahagan from the United States, he's actually reporting from Los Angeles, shows us how to cut jackfruit. All right. So jackfruit is not part of my regular diet. I really appreciated this video so I could see what in the world a jackfruit was, and it is a little tricky to cut. So this is the world's largest tree-borne fruit. This fruit can reach 80 pounds. And I think Vahagan said he usually gets fruit that's around 35 pounds. It was either 25 or 35. I think he said 35 pounds. And that's what we're shown in this video. It's actually a very sticky fruit. So he shows us how with his knife, he cuts it up and then, he puts it in dishes and things like that so he can eat it later. And then he also shows us how to clean the knife because, again, it's really sticky and you need to, do a little work on it before you put it away. So I thought that was interesting. Then on Friday, we had two reports. So Diane from the United States, she is in Iowa. She reported on a place that she visited. It's, if you guys remember the movie, it was released in the United States called Field of Dreams. This, actually, I had to look it up because I watched the movie like a million years ago. And I was like, gosh, when was that movie released? It was actually released in 1989. And she went to the place where they filmed this movie. And it was kind of interesting. So the home that the guy lived in, let me tell you what this, if you haven't seen this movie, let me tell you what this is about. So this took place in Iowa. The storyline took place in Iowa. And there was an Iowa farmer, which was, he's played by Kevin Costner, I believe. And he gets all inspired by a voice that he hears that he can't ignore to pursue a dream he can hardly believe. See, I'm reading this description off their website, okay? And it says, supported by his wife, Ray begins the quest of turning his ordinary cornfield into a place where dreams can come true. This is a baseball movie, guys. And if you've heard that line, if you build it, they will come. It comes from this movie. So Diane happened to be there and, they kind of, build up this whole thing and tell you about the movie and how things were recorded and stuff. And what I love about this is that this is about dreams. And how many times are we encouraging people now to remember what your dreams were. If you've tucked it away for a long time because you thought, oh, that's never going to happen, I'm never going to have the money to do that, now is the time to pull all of those dreams back out, all of those aspirations that you had that you thought could never happen, because now is the time. It is in your soul for a reason. And that's exactly what this character did in this movie. He just kind of went with it, and we are going to have more and more opportunities to do that moving forward. And our final story on Friday was from Monica from Romania. All right, I'm going to try to pronounce this guy's name, and sorry, guys, if I totally butcher this. Brhush. That is not how it is spelled, by the way, but I believe that's how Monica said it in the report. We go to his memorial house. Now, he was an Romanian sculptor, and the village he grew up in gave him the freedom to do things a little bit differently, and Monica tells us a little bit about this. He is considered to be one of the most influential sculptors? He's not a sculptor. He's a sculptor of the 20th century. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Brhush. All right, I'm going to tell you how it's spelled. Brancusi. If you want to learn more about him, you can check out that report as well. If you aren't a member, then the best thing to do is to wait about a week later and watch the entire newscast on YouTube and Rumble. That's the best way to see these individual segments. If you are a member, you can watch those now. And they are released individually, but a little bit later through the UNN app. In the New Earth. Okay, so this is a whole section of the newscast that is truly meant to uplift and inspire you guys and get you thinking about where we're going with our planet. We usually kick things off with a short interview, about 5 to 7 minutes long. So let's go through those interviews first, and then I'll share some fun New Earth stories that we discussed this week. All right, on Monday, we had Jai Hain on the newscast. He is a quantum osteopath and frequency specialist, and he talks about your frequency first aid kit. So if you were going to put together a first aid kit of things that would help you improve your frequency and your connection, things that would prevent blockages frequency-wise for healing, what would you have in your first aid kit? That's what Jai talks about. So that's kind of fun. I think it goes through 5 or 6 different things. Then on Wednesday, David Gibson is on the news. He is a sound healing visionary, and he's very accomplished in his own right. He's done some amazing work. You'll have to just look him up. He's incredible. He talks about healing with your voice, which I think a lot of us, when we think about sound healing, we may think, oh, Tibetan bowls and tuning forks and, maybe frequency machines and, things like that. But do we necessarily think about using our own voice, which for most of us is the easiest thing, we've got access to 24/7, right? And David talks about how we knew how to do this as babies and how it's about getting back to our roots, which is what a lot of this waking up process is, right? We knew this originally. As babies, we came straight from source, God, the creator. And we knew this stuff, and then we kind of developed amnesia when we got into our human bodies. And now it's about rediscovering these amazing gifts that we have. And then on Friday, we had Inga Lightly on the news. She is a healthy food coach, and she talks about her major recommendation, her main weight loss secret for people. And this is not to be super gimmicky, guys, because this isn't some crazy pill that, you have to take. We know the best healing is natural healing, and I'm going to give it to you guys, okay? So the weight loss secret is really listening to your body. Now, Inga goes into more depth on how to do that by following your body's natural cues for hunger pains and things like that, which may not be exactly what you're thinking about. You don't have to be, toppling over with stomach pains in order, to eat. So it's just about recognizing that and understanding our bodies a little bit more. If you want information on any of those, then I encourage you guys to go back and watch those newscasts. Also on the app, I do release these segments individually. And it's according to each expert. So if you just want to, gobble up all the stuff that we've released with Inga or David or Jai, you can do that Again, that's on our app. Just check out the New Earth section. All right, let's talk about some really interesting stories. So the first story, New Earth story, is about a prison in Pennsylvania. They have introduced a special wing designed for inmates with autism and other developmental disabilities. Now, the reason I really like this story is because we think sometimes, maybe not everyone that's listening to this newscast, but the majority of people out there think that, oh, if you go to prison, you're a bad person. And the more you learn about our society, the more you learn that that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of people in prison that shouldn't be in prison. And the way we treat inmates isn't in a way typically that encourages them to come out and be, valuable contributors to society. So I love these kinds of stories that really look at the humanity of these people and what can we do to help them. It's a completely different mindset. So this particular prison is the first of its kind in the state of Pennsylvania, and it provides a safe environment where 45 inmates can receive individualized treatments. Inmates use resources like puzzles, yoga, drawing supplies to make the atmosphere feel more therapeutic. All right, our next story is about the benefits of singing, the health benefits of singing. And I believe we had this story the same day we had David on to talk about healing with your voice. So it went on, it kind of went hand in hand with what David was talking about. So a new study shows group singing boosts your spirits, both for the singers and the listeners. Singing in unison with other people, it enhances your brain elasticity and improves the overall sense of well-being. It reduces anxiety and improves memory. Singers also experience an emotional release, which is connected to a heightened sense of well-being and belonging and just a connection to something bigger. And the other thing that's part of this too is that it's not, and David talked about this more in his segment, it's not about being able to sing well. That's a whole other thing. And David talks about how that really messed us up because now people don't want to sing if they don't have this perfect, voice. And it's really messed up our ability to do a lot of cool things with our voices. And so this is not about singing beautifully. This is about singing as a group and also singing individually, but that connection that's developed. And our final story in the New Earth is about olive oil and how it can help with dementia. It's based on another study. A study in the U.S. suggests adding a spoonful of olive oil to your daily diet could have huge health benefits. Adults who consumed more than 1 teaspoon of olive oil daily were 28% less likely to die from dementia-related diseases compared to those who rarely consumed it. Olive oil has a high content of monounsaturated fatty acids and antioxidants like vitamin E and polyphenols, and those are key. They also have anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective effects. In our regional news, so these are stories that take place all around the world. It's to give us a better sense of what is happening currently, what are some of the main headlines that are happening. And we try to keep these stories as focused on the people as much as possible. So we don't really care what governments are doing unless it's directly impacting the people. And we have about 15 stories in each newscast. So what I try to do for this podcast wrap up is to find some common denominators, some stories and like different categories that are similar. And, are there, ways to group these stories? Are we talking more about this week and this? So what I have come up with for this week is 3 different topics. We have schools and education, we have marriage and relationships, and we have news and media. So let's get started with schools and education. And we're going to kick things off in India. So police in India have uncovered a scam involving at least 30 students who allegedly paid between $12,000 and $50,000 to pass medical exams. The scam involved private coaching centers, teachers, and a supervisor at the exam center. 5 people were arrested. Protests have now erupted demanding accountability. This reminds me of a story that was uncovered. I'm sure this has gone on for a very long time, but here in the U.S., we had a scandal, wasn't involving medical students, but celebrities getting their students or their children into schools and paying crazy amounts of money in order to do it. And then they prosecuted some people. They were kind of the people that got blamed for it. But this happens everywhere. What I think is interesting is more and more of these stories are coming to light. Okay, let's talk about financial literacy. There's a new report highlighting teenagers in wealthy nations lack financial literacy and the math skills necessary for what they're calling the digital economy. They say many 15-year-olds have difficulty understanding financial terms, and 1/5 of these people are unable to calculate percentages. In the countries surveyed, which I know the U.S. was one of those countries, 18% of teens struggled with basic math skills needed for managing money. Although 2/3 have bank accounts, only 36% can confidently read their bank statements. And honestly, I think this is intentional, right? We don't want, not us, but the powers that were did not want us to fully understand money on any level, and this is just one more example of that. Okay, in Louisiana, they are the first state in the U.S. to mandate the 10 commandments in every public school classroom. This new law requires prominent displays of this religious text in classrooms, starting in kindergarten all the way up through university level by the year 2025. Opponents are challenging the law's constitutionality, right? Separation church and state. And they say the posters, so the information about the 10 commandments, will be funded by donations. They're not going to use state funding in order to do that. Okay, moving on to marriage and relationships. In Namibia, in Africa, their high court has overturned a law criminalizing gay sex. The law, which was inherited from South Africa's apartheid legislation, was rarely enforced, but it contributed to discrimination and police violence against LGBTQ plus individuals. The court declared the law is unfair discrimination, noting similar acts between heterosexual couples were not criminalized. Also, Foxconn, we have talked about them before. So they are an Apple contractor. Again, they are called Foxconn, Foxconn. They have been rejecting married women from job opportunities. Reports indicate women who are married, women with children, if they are wearing metal ornaments, in other words, a ring around their finger, they are turned away from getting these job opportunities. And Foxconn is citing reasons such as the need for a metal-free work environment. So recruiters are suggesting that women remove any jewelry that might be controversial and also not update their marital status on official IDs. So that's apparently the workaround, not accepting people for who they are. Very interesting. In India, their Supreme Court is ruling next month on whether marital rape should be criminalized in their new penal code. So they have some new laws which are replacing colonial era codes from the 1960s. They are set to take effect July 1st. And these new laws consider consensual sex on a false promise of marriage. They consider that a crime, which imposes a 10-year sentence. However, here's the catch. Marital rape will not be criminalized if the wife is older than 18. And critics are arguing that this gives men unchecked control over their women's bodies. And our last category here is news and media. Actually, I have 4 stories for you guys here. Channel 7 in Australia. They are a major Australian free-to-air broadcaster. They have a huge exodus of their staff happening right now. They had layoffs in their management. They have dismissed their top management, and they've just left their chairman and his associate. Those are the only two people remaining. And they are continuing to lay off people in various departments. They say up to 100 more jobs are possibly at risk. And the channel's shares have plummeted, hovering at an all-time low. They simply just can't compete anymore. In Singapore, there is a new report that is raising concerns about the effectiveness of Singapore's Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act. So I looked up this act. This actually went into effect in 2019, and it allowed for what they call correction directions, which, based on what I've read, it sounds like what we have here in the United States, where if something is posted online, you have certain sites that are like, is that information true? Would you like to know another perspective on that? You know, I see this on YouTube and various sites as well. They put these little notes out there. It sounds like something similar. And you can click on a link and learn more about the clarification and how it might differ from the original content. Okay, something like that. Well, the analysis based on this report, it showed less than 40% of people believed regulations reduced false information online during elections. Experts are stressing the need for multiple fact-checking sources, greater data transparency, and more comprehensive media literacy to better protect against misinformation. All right, let's talk about fake news and fake news websites. They are everywhere, right? Well, a new report reveals fake news websites in the United States outnumbered legitimate local news sites. The sites are often termed pink slime. Have you heard this term before? For their low quality content. They say these are typically partisan entities, and they are those seeking profit through what we call clickbait, right? So sensationalized headlines just to get you to click on it, make a buck or so for them, and doesn't really give you much content in return. Also, the use of AI has increased their production and spread of these fake websites. And media analysts warn this surge could threaten press freedom and could also influence upcoming elections. So could the deep state. So many things could influence upcoming elections. That's why we don't put a lot of stock in them. In fact, we call them selections, not elections. All right, our final story here in our regional stories is about online dating ads. So these are the, ads for dating services, online dating services like apps and things like that. Several American dating apps are facing backlash over controversial marketing campaigns. Bumble, if you've heard of Bumble before, they are facing backlash after their recent billboard campaign made light of the struggles of their single users. So they're making fun of people who might use their app. I'm not sure if that's a good strategy. They were actually suggesting that the single people join nunneries. Interesting approach. Critics argue the ads blame users rather than addressing issues with the app and dating culture. Also, we have Tinder on here. They have shifted their focus from being the hookup app, right? That's kind of what they're known for, to promoting various types of relationships. And there's another app called Hinge. They are continuing to push their campaign, which is called Design to be Deleted, meaning if you use their app, pretty soon you can delete the app because you found your one and only. All right, now we've got some clips for you, some information from the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. So I mentioned in our podcast episode last week that last week was pretty interesting. Usually Kim and I come on the news together. Kim gives the information and we just kind of chat about stuff and I ask some follow-up questions or clarifying questions. But it's been really interesting with the deep state lately, and also I'm in a different recording location, and we are recording the news a couple hours earlier each day, and we haven't been able to connect very well, Kim and I, to be able to record at the same time, either because of the deep state's antics or because, again, we're just recording a little bit earlier. So this week, we were able to record together on Monday, which I was excited about because I do like to record live with Kim. And then on Wednesday and Friday, she recorded separately. Not that that's a big deal, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys an overview. Sometimes I'm getting the news at the same time you guys are getting the news and having to process it and take notes to make sure I can get all this stuff out on the podcast for you guys. Let's start with Monday, though, and some of the things that Kim talked about. So there was still a lot of cleaning and clearing going on. When we say that, we're talking about getting rid of the dark as much as possible. We are now a light planet. I mentioned the light system that our entire planet operates on. And so the goal is to remove as much darkness as possible. Darkness is getting in the way for us to be able to do the things that we need to do and to move forward with our new Earth, and for you guys to move forward with projects and things that you're passionate about, things that you've been maybe not able to do in the past that are very beneficial for our planet and for humanity. And so that's what we mean when we say cleaning and clearing. It's clearing the financial system so we can transfer money directly to people so we can begin this whole process. There's also just a lot of clearing of negative energy, dark energy out there. And so as this happens, as the deep state kind of tries to fight back and do their little things, they go to different locations and it reveals a lot. So we kind of have to thank them a little bit. They're definitely helping us get rid of all this nasty stuff on our planet because they're trying to use it. And then we see that they're using it, and then Kim is able to disable it and remove it from our planet. So, really helpful there. So here are a couple examples of things that she found this week, which were interesting. The first thing we're going to talk about is actually a place where she said HAARP started. So most people are familiar with HAARP and how it is a weather manipulation system, controls the weather in various ways. They really aren't able to do much with it anymore. But where all this started was in the Black Pyramids of Alaska. And if you haven't heard of that before, you're in good company because Kim didn't even know where it was before. There's very little information about this online, but if you do search for it, there are, I believe, some YouTube videos that pop up based on, my search engine results the other day. This is an enormous DUMBS, so deep underground military base in Alaska. It is probably the largest in the world, according to Kim. And it's a place where really weird things happen. You hear things like the Bermuda Triangle and some other places that wacky things happen. People have no idea why it happens. It just happens. Well, there's definitely a reason behind all of this, usually having to do with energy and portals and things like that. So I'm going to play a soundbite where Kim tells us more about the Black Pyramids of Alaska. And then after she talks about that, she goes right into talking about another find, which is manipulation through LED lights. LED lights that we experience, that we see in all of these stores. Remember, there was a big push to remove regular lighting in commercial facilities and educational facilities and replace it with LED lights. Well, that wasn't just a money-making thing. I'm sure that was for someone to make money as well and have their businesses prosper financially. But it was also a way for them to manipulate our bodies. Okay, so I'm going to play a soundbite. It's a longer soundbite, and it's going to incorporate both information about the Black Pyramids in Alaska and this manipulation through LED lights. Here's Kim.
There's a lot of information on the internet about things like the Bermuda Triangle, Area 51, some cases Area 52, Los Alamos, New Mexico, and everybody kind of seems to talk about the same places repeatedly in a different way with lots of whistleblowers that talk about the same. Mm-hmm. But there's very little information out there about the Black Pyramids in Alaska.
Right.
Now, this was... and I can say was, pretty confidently, an enormous base underneath Alaska, probably one of the largest in the world. This is what you would call a deep underground military base, not run by your normal military, although it appears that everybody kind of was involved. So there was a lot of agency involvement, a lot of military involvement in the base, but the super secret stuff happened way below ground. Mm-hmm. Now, This place, and I think we've got a map. As you can see, it covers a large portion of Alaska, and it's around this triangle here that you see. There was also a large circle around it that went all the way through Canada and even parts of the U.S. Why was this base so big? There are a lot of reports, not a lot, actually, very few reports, I should say, on the internet about this base. And in some of those very few reports, they talk about a few whistleblowers that have come forward that have gone down into the space. There are a few people that have talked about it like it's the Bermuda Triangle. They say that when you fly over this certain area and you get close to the epicenter in the middle of this triangle, they have system malfunctions, their radar equipment stops working, those types of things, and everything has to go manual from that point. I wouldn't doubt it. They talk about it as if it is a giant energy generator. This is what the internet reports. Is that the case? The answer to the question is no. What this actually was, it was a base route platform to where Omega would breach into this side of the universe.
Oh, wow.
Yep. In the center of this is where you would find what they call the Black Pyramid. So there are like literally, I tried to scour the internet once I found this. I'm like, someone's got to be talking about this because, you know, it's bigger than Area 51, bigger than Area 52, bigger than the Bermuda Triangle, lost city of Atlantis, and all this other things that everybody talks about, but nobody there's like 3 reports literally, and I think 2 of them are from the same guy.
Okay.
So this was the source of our problem. And we had talked a few weeks back about us putting this Faraday cage around Omega, trying to isolate it, and where is it still getting power from? And here's my answer. It is an enormously large energy generator which powered Omega on the entire side of this universe. So in other words, in the Alphaverse.
Yeah.
I know. Big find there. Lots of people, lots of laboratories, lots of experimentation. And in the past, there was a direct portal for humans to go as far down as the 6th density in the lower astral to work, whether they knew it or not.
Okay. And was this part of some sort of soul transfer? We've talked about that before. Was it different than that?
It really wasn't a soul transfer as much as it was a sentient AI base platform for the generation of energy.
Okay.
The scientists that have gone down to this area have said that the pyramid that they could see, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's like the little anthill you see, you know, before you get down into the anthole and you see all the arms and legs. But this one here, they knew that it was generating some kind of energy. And at least in the internet reports, they really don't go into too much detail. But this actually was a large transmuter, which means that it takes that light energy that us batteries generate for it and then transmutes it into something dark to then power the Omega. Now, it comes as no surprise that there's a lot of military activity in Alaska for this very reason. One of the other things that you will remember, this is where HARP started. Yep, for the entire world.
Wow.
Yep, why was that? This was also the hub for the CIA's what we call a VTX platform, which means that it was a direct connection to your financial system. back a few years back before we installed key integrated monetary system. So lots of things take place in Alaska for this very reason. Now, did it give them access to Omega per se from this area? You know, I'm going to say limited access, but it did allow them to do a lot of experimentation against humans for utilizing dark energy, dark matter, and those types of things, and how this affects us. So much so, we uncovered a second thing actually tied to this base. And you're going to find this one really, really interesting. So a few months back, maybe even it was almost a year ago now, there was this big thing and a big push to install LED lights into all commercial buildings.
Yeah.
And they were going to ban regular light bulbs. Now, the ones that you put in your home, the small ones in your, bathroom or whatever, aren't really the ones that they were shooting for. They were shooting for a connection to the large commercial ones, which are your long fluorescent lights.
Okay.
And how they could use this dark energy through two different facilities. I'm just going to say both of them are in the United States. I'm not going to disclose where they are. And they could use this dark energy coming from there to cause issues with human beings while you're shopping at the grocery store. As an example, if you remember, we played a video a few months back about a school where the teacher said that the kids were increasingly agitated after the installation of these LED lights and how it was affecting his students. And then once he put a blue panel over those lights, the students went back to normal the way they were the year before. So this has directly affected a lot of humans. There are a few other energy type experiments that have been going on based in from this same location. This was, like I said, this was only a main hub. There are two other locations that I am aware of so far in the United States that were tied to this, because this just happened yesterday afternoon, and we've been searching. But this is just one way in one experiment that you all can probably relate to. I know for myself, if I go to a grocery store or a Walmart, which I hate to do, but have to do from time to time. I kept thinking, what has changed since COVID? Because after the lockdowns and all that, I'm thinking, are they spraying something in the air? My eyes would get all red and irritated and blurry, and I just wouldn't feel good, and I just needed to get the heck out of there. I know that there were a number of reports that I got even during that time where people would say, well, I can't go in there anymore. It must be the disinfectant that they're spraying. It's making me feel ill. I feel like they're transmitting some kind of frequency in here for those that are very sensitive, and they weren't sure why. Well, now we have the answer.
Things you never knew about LED lighting. So again, this is not to spread fear. This is to inform you, and there are things that you can do. Kim, later on in that newscast, describes kind of a little test that she did with being able to, block some of those frequencies, when she walks in those kind of stores, and just shares her own personal experience. And we have the ability to do that too. So we are not helpless in this. On Wednesday, so this was where Kim recorded at a different time. She did that both on Wednesday and Friday. She talks a little bit more about this, and she talks about the different locations where she discovered these frequencies were coming from. So if you want to learn, she literally lists all these different locations where it was coming from and the fact that those were removed. So she might find more stuff in the future. I'm not sure if that process is completely over with yet, but know that things are being done to make sure that they do not have this type of control over humanity moving forward. Also on Wednesday, Kim updated us on how there's a lot of lying going on in the banking industry right now. We've talked for a long time about how the deep state is trying to regain control over the financial system of planet Earth. By any means necessary, by any kind of alien tech that might be lying around, that they don't understand really how it works and how it was connected to Omega and how it cannot function anymore without that support system behind it. It doesn't matter. Most of these people have no idea how this stuff ran. They just knew they did XYZ and stuff worked. So they are trying anything and everything that they can get their hands on because they know that they can never run the light system. See, the thing with the light system is it only works for the light. If you try to tell it to do something that is not of the light, meaning out of love, it is not going to work. And I know that sometimes that's a hard concept for us to wrap our brains around because this is not a normal computer system. This is a true etheric quantum system, which most of us have never had any kind of interaction with. But that's what our whole planet is running on right now and will continue to run on. And so they can't do nefarious things with a light system. So what they're trying to do is regain access to old control systems that they've had in the past. And like I said, not doing a very good job at it and becoming very frustrated in the process. Kim says that they were trying to tie into their plans for social crediting and that they were expecting to install these systems everywhere. But again, it had to tie into the Omega system. And so it didn't work. You know, that's just one example of some things that they're doing. She also talked about something that I hadn't heard of before. I'm going to play a soundbite on what a farm is. Okay, this ties into our presidents that we've had, you know, in the past. So specifically talking about U.S. presidents, I believe, these are black operatives, okay, black ops. They are highly trained individuals, and every president has a farm team with the exception of Biden. Biden did not get a farm team. And the reason this is important is because the deep state was also trying to gain access to farm accounts that they thought they could somehow get money out of. And Kim had to take those out as well. But it's interesting to know more about these farms and what they did. So here is Kim explaining that.
You probably heard me talk about something called the farms. And what I mean by farms, I don't mean agricultural people, you know, growing vegetables in any way, shape, or form here. A farm is a group of operatives. These are what you would call black ops operatives. They do contract with places like Langley and MI6 and the old KGB, now the SVR, and you know, South African SS. So they're kind of everywhere. They're of all nationalities. These are highly trained, sophisticated operatives. And these people are born of what they call the farm. These are the people that are bred for this. These are the people that would be given the medical enhancements necessary to allow them to be what you call super soldiers. They are given different versions of medication depending on how old they are, or, you know, then they have newer stuff out these days they give them. So these are your people that go bump in the night. Now, let's go back to farm. So there is a farm created for every U.S. president since number 22. The only one since President 22 that has not had his or her, well, it's never been a her, his own respective farm is this current president. So Biden has never had this done because there's some kind of a program that they do that makes them extremely loyal to that particular head of state. So much so it's almost like an obsession. It's like, you've seen movies where they do this kind of love potion witch thing that they do, and all of a sudden the man falls in love with the woman, or vice versa, or one person falls in love with another. Well, it's kind of like that, but it's an ongoing thing that it really never ends. I think that this is probably why your Trump operatives are so a little bit not okay. The 45s operatives are probably more out there than most of them. But I think that they took some of the older guys, too, that had been loyal to Reagan and then moved them over to the Trump administration. I'm not really sure, but definitely something's different about that farm than all the other farms. Okay, the reason why I'm bringing up farms to you is because at one point in time, the farm people who graduated from each respective farm also had a program in computers in the Omega system where they could be controlled by that program and that system. Did Langley have a small amount of access to something like this? I'd say it was minimal, but yes, they did. And it would be more the lower basement levels underneath Langley where the Black Sun programs take place, the Black operative programs, the conditioning. You've seen it in the movies and like the Bourne series, Project Treadstone, I think they call it, but no, this is just a farm. So these farms were also connected to their respective, spoils. So when a president becomes a president, and this is of pretty much any country, the president only does so the president and their respective operatives become power brokers. They make all kinds of deals for assets, resources, trade agreements, even treaties would yield them money that would come out for that. So each one of these is tied usually to a farm account. And that particular farm account has predominantly liens in it. The farm accounts also have what's called money for or derivatives, which are bonds issued against the asset itself, like oil or gas. If there was a war during that presidency and they gained control over a particular country's oil, they would then issue a bond against it and then derivatives from that bond. So most of these farm accounts are not actual cash that they could spend. Therefore, somewhat irrelevant. Now, the control systems, to some lesser degree, also had their own web and internet to which they could tap into these people's brains and make them do crazy things. Maybe the one running Duck Dynasty is day drinking or something. I'm not sure, because the things that these people are doing are a little bit crazy. But I bring this up because the day before yesterday, yesterday or Monday evening, they tried to attack or get a hold of or gain access to what they call the farm accounts or the farm monetary system. Because a lot of black market trading happens all the time through these farm lines. But they were hoping that they could somehow, I'm not sure, but it looked like they were trying to install the farm system to some kind of digital currency system, to some kind of, the MIG-V platform. Kind of looked like a combo package. Needless to say, we have no more farm systems now, no more fake accounts, no more monetary systems for black ops and black ops transfers, and no more backdoors for Langley. So thank you for pointing that out. I forgot all about the farm. So now everybody can kind of forget about the farm, really, because it's almost useless at this point.
That's right. Just one more system from the deep state that has been taken out. Now, let's briefly talk about July 4th coming up in the next couple of days as of this recording, because this is not just about America's Independence Day. July 4th on a global scale is when allocation numbers would go out, and all of these people from around the world would get paid to carry out orders from, it's not even the deep state, you guys. This is when it gets into non-humans, dictating what happens on our planet. But there were humans carrying out all of these orders. And so you had to have allocation numbers to match the money. All of this money would essentially come out at this time to pay for all of this crazy stuff that would happen throughout the year. So this hasn't happened in a long time, okay? But the deep state is still hopeful because everything else is falling through for them. They are still hopeful that maybe something will happen this July 4th. We know it's not going to happen because Kim would have to issue those allocation numbers. She is not going to do that. Therefore, they are not going to get any money, and they do not have any nefarious aliens protecting them anymore. Those beings are gone, sent back to the creator. But that is kind of the next big date. So on Friday, Kim talked about a couple different things. In the U.S. on Thursday night, we had our presidential debate, if you can call it that, between these two candidates that they have selected for us. So we have Trump and Biden here in the U.S. that are running for president. We know that that is not Trump and that is not Biden. What you see on the TV are not those real people. Those people are no longer with us. And I know that's a lot for people to take in, but that is the reality of our situation. They are being played by other people, not clones, people in masks, things like that. And so I actually did tune into the debate. I'm hanging out with some family right now, and they really wanted to watch it. And so I thought, well, I'll learn something from this, I'm sure. So if you ended up watching the debate, you probably noticed some weird things. And Kim talks about this a little bit on Friday because it's not every day that two dead presidents debate one another. The first thing, and if you want to go back, and these are just a little, some little Easter eggs or nuggets, you may want to go back and watch some of this stuff. So Trump had what Kim calls green screen hair, which I don't have blonde hair anymore. There was a time in my life where I did have blonde hair and I was on green screen. And I can testify to the fact that blonde hair is hard to key out on a green screen, meaning it's hard to get the green out of blonde hair. And Kim talks about this because Kim has blonde hair. And sometimes it's hard to get it out even when she's on UNN. And so Trump has green screen hair. The question is, why was he on a green screen? Makes more sense if you've seen the debate, because there were certain things that happened that are kind of historic that haven't happened before. So usually the president or the candidates come out and they shake hands. That did not happen. Now you could say, oh, they don't like each other. I don't buy that. Okay, you can have a little bit of civility to do a presidential election or a presidential debate. And so they didn't. They actually came out from opposite sides and barely looked at each other. And there was an interesting split screen going on as well, where they would show Trump on one side, Biden on the other, but they would rarely show them like a wide shot of the entire room. There was also nobody in the audience, and it makes you wonder why. And there's a million descriptions and reasons why. They say, it was Biden and he would get too nervous or would fumble over his words if there were people watching. Like, we can't have a president that has an audience. Are you kidding me? But there's a lot of excuses out there, right? Well, another reason could be that the candidates weren't even there. So that is a very real possibility. Why else would Trump be on green screen? Makes no sense. Also, Kim says both parties were reading from teleprompters, and the writers were kind of orchestrating or choreographing the whole thing. So Kim thinks there was probably writers on both sides collaborating together, or maybe the same writers were, doing both sides. This was scripted. The other thing that I noticed that I thought was interesting, not about the debate, because actually I thought the debate was pretty boring, but afterward, is the narrative of the mainstream media. I thought it was really interesting because they ran with their own narrative that I didn't feel was reflective of what actually happened during the debate. And we've talked in the past about how with major stories. They are prepared in advance. It is not news, okay? It might as well be called olds. It's not news. It's prepped way in advance, and it tells a certain narrative. And obviously, there was a coordinated effort for the media to come out after the debate, claim that Trump won, but say horrible things about Biden and how he was just horrible and needed to essentially be replaced as a potential presidential candidate. If you watch the debate, it's not that Biden did well, okay? Trump appeared to do better, but if you're reading off a teleprompter, okay, that's not too hard to do. But Biden didn't do as bad as they said. So you could definitely tell that that information, those announcements, that whole narrative was decided way in advance. And it was a really good example for the people, the average person, to see how the media manipulates the storylines. And I thought it was really interesting. Like I said, I watched the debate with my parents, who are not awake and aware, which is why they were probably watching the debate. And they said the same thing. When the media started to talk afterwards in the post-debate coverage, they said, that's not what we saw. They were actually not impressed with Biden, but surprised by how well he did. And so it's interesting to watch people that probably will never, maybe I won't say never, but it'll be a while before people like my parents and other people in my family probably watched UNN and believe some of the stuff that we talk about, because they're kind of more seeing is believing. And so they even saw this. So I love how the deep state does this. They are probably unintentionally, but they're waking up more and more people. They're planting little seeds, and people that are more, mainstream are starting to see that stuff's really off here. What in the world is going on? Okay. So if you want more about, Kim's breakdown of the debate, you can listen to Friday's newscast. You can watch Friday's newscast. She talked a little bit more about July 4th. If you go to that crazy page, the Q clock, which, is not accurate information, but it does give us a gauge on, what their narrative is right now and what they're trying to accomplish. They are talking about a military lockdown on July 4th. That's what their little clock is saying right now. That's not going to happen. That is based on money coming out, which we know money is not going to come out on July 4th. But if they did have money, there's a lot of crazy things they'd want to do, including a military lockdown. Not going to happen. Kim also talked about various ways that they are just hacking, trying to get into different systems, things that have existed long time ago. She talks about how they were trying to hack into the Visa and MasterCard core system. Also, she briefly mentioned this, and there really wasn't enough for a soundbite, but she talks about how they were actually tapping into the Nazi Hydra program and bringing back some remaining humans from that program, which that sounds a little crazy. None of those beings are alive anymore, but there was some craziness going on over there. The soundbite that I'm going to play for you is about Elon Musk, who is not a good guy, if you're wondering. He's not a good guy. He played with demons as a kid. I've actually interviewed his babysitter. He is part of an Illuminati family and not a good guy. Wants to use technology in various ways to harm us. And it's not that he's even the brains behind the technology. He gets far more credit for the stuff than he should. He's really a front man for a lot of this. So the soundbite that I want to play is about another system that Kim caught. Elon Musk was trying to reconnect to something called the XXX system. We know that they love using X, especially Elon Musk, right? He's got SpaceX. He changed Twitter to X, and X stands for extermination. And that's what their plan was for us. It's not going so well. It's not going well at all, but that's what they wanted to do. And this ties into satellite. So I want to play this soundbite. It's about 14 minutes long. And it's going to talk a little bit more about this XXX system. And it's also going to talk about how if he had access to this, or his people had access to be able to tap into this system, how he was thinking it could tap into his product Neuralink to transfer human consciousness. He does not have the ability to do this. He will never have the ability to do this. But, you know, the guy has high hopes. What can I say?
Long ago, there was a system installed on this planet, and we've talked about all of the X programs. Everything is X. Well, in the case of a potential Omega backup system, it was actually called the XXX system. The XXX system was something that could be used to a lesser degree from level 6 on down. I should say it was very limited, and of course with Marduk's authorization at the time as an off-market trading system for the Rothschild family or the Order of the Dragon, from the Blue Dragon on down. Now, the system hasn't functioned in a very long time. But some, how do we say it? Humans that believe very highly or think very highly of themselves believed that they could turn it back on. Now, their hope was, and this is in the words of Elon Musk, in his SpaceX program and Starlink program and all those other programs that he has, in his words, he thought that he could get a hold of the XXX system, hook up the Starlink system to it, and therefore have the computing power to operate this system, at least from a level 6 on down, to then recreate a new financial system based on digital currencies. Well, let's talk a little bit about this system. Starlink is capable, and its satellite systems are capable of, helping you hook up to the internet at a speed that a human is used to, not at quantum speeds. And by quantum, I'm not talking about Google quantum computers here. I'm talking about faster than the speed of light. Fast, I mean, multiple data transfers per nanosecond, I mean, kind of fast. So Elon Musk and his secret space program partners and some Duck Dynasty people ventured out to Piccadilly Circus, or underneath Piccadilly Circus in London. Now, for those of you that don't know what's under the city of London, it is an enormous, what they call an MI6 facility. I'm not going to call it an MI6 or 5 facility. I'd say in part, possibly. But the main, how do I say this in a nice way? The main bit of activity that occurred underneath there is actually done by some secret space program people. And then beyond that, in the past, the rest were not human. So the XXX system, as far as its base core, also did not exist in that location. There was only a transmitter there, which then allowed for that system to connect to human computers. They still couldn't have gotten into the base root system, even if we didn't destroy the facility. Now, as far as MI6, what they refer to as the circus, well, the circus appears to be out of business, mostly. They might still have some regular computers and a level 1 access point to that facility to do some monitoring of people walking around the streets of London, and that's about it. As far as connecting to anything alien-like, that's not going to be possible. Now, Elon Musk had another brilliant idea that along with the XXX system came something that he also doesn't understand. These are two different types of satellites that orbit the Earth that were also made of alien tech. The first type of satellite is what I call a cylindrical satellite because they are long, they definitely are in the shape of a cylinder, and they hold and transmit an extremely large amount of data. So they are transmitters. At the same time, they're data recorders. Sometimes these satellites were hooked into programs being run from the lower astral that could interfere with your brain function, as an example. It would also record human behavior to see how best to control or destroy humanity. And that information was going to groups of beings in the lower astral. It was not shared with humans because you were part of the experiment too, even though you were part of the space program or otherwise. Sometimes they were also used to transmit messages to the heads of the people that were in some of those space programs, and people like Elon Musk, that are also part of the order. So they're interesting satellites. Now, if you want to learn a little bit about cylindrical satellites, there is a movie. It's a few years old now that does talk about the fact that the NSA had captured one of these satellites, and they wanted to be able to hire someone who could decode the satellite so that they could read the information in it. And then what they did to the coder after that was terrible when he did manage to, quote unquote, crack the code. Now, the movie is called Alien Code. It came out in 2018. It's a good movie nonetheless, but it does talk all about cylindrical satellites and how they are alien tech and so on and so forth. So if they knew enough about it for the CIA to approve a movie about cylindrical satellites, then I guarantee you to some limited degree, Elon Musk was trying to get his hands on it. Did they know to the fullest extent what cylindrical satellites do? I don't know. And I'm going to say I don't think so, because they thought that this XXX system, if they could get access to this platform in London under Piccadilly Circus, that they could then connect and utilize these satellites and link them to Starlink. Now, he also has been talking quite a bit about his other product, Neuralink. And this is where it really gets scary. So we've talked in the past about implants and parasites in humans. Now, these aren't necessarily physical parasites. They can also be etherical parasites or energy parasites or essence parasites. And these are alien technology that you probably can't always see on a physical level. I do believe this is part of the reason why people talk about Morgellons and being itchy when there's nothing there and everybody thinks they're nuts. Well, they might just be more sensitive than other people in this particular case, because implants and parasites were a very common way connected to cylindrical or spherical satellites, and we'll talk about spherical satellites in a second, that they would connect to every part of your being. So every part of your brain, that's how they would mess around with your amygdala, which controls your fight or flight, your reptilian cortex, and every other neocortex, the limbic system, your neurological system, any part of your body to extract energy, to drain you of life force on every single level, also to send in dark energy or something that would cause dis-ease in your body, also known as disease. So these satellites, not always were they for the human function, but a lot of times they were involved in controlling and infecting and destroying human life on this planet. So Elon Musk comes out and starts talking about how his Neuralink product can be utilized to transfer a human's consciousness. This is what he's telling everybody. And if you could transfer the human consciousness into another vessel or another body, then you could live forever and be immortal, and you would remember everyone in your life, and you would remember everything you're doing, and he's just the guy to do it. So did he have some knowledge of what cylindrical satellites did? And did he actually think that the ones that were connected to the XXX program were the ones indeed that he was looking for? And did he think if he could connect his Starlink product, possibly with his Neuralink product, and those cylindrical satellites, that he could control all of humanity? Well, probably. Did it work? No. Is there any connection to those satellites? The satellites aren't there anymore. Not to say that there wouldn't be other ones, but more than likely the cylindrical satellites would be more of a data in, data out type thing. Best I can tell from me destroying fields and fields of them in Earth's orbit over the last 3 years. The second type of satellite would be more likely to be the one that they were looking for in order to control light, essence, energy, consciousness, matter, and frequency, and so on and so forth, which was actually something that was not connected to the XXX system. These types of satellites are called spherical satellites. So they look just like the Death Star from miniature little versions of the Death Star from Star Wars is what they look like. And they have a small, what I call an absolute sphere inside them. And an absolute sphere reminds me a lot of the little ball that some car manufacturers have that can control everything from your radio to your air conditioning to your heater in your car. Some car models have them. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I remember looking at a car that had this very thing and didn't end up purchasing it because my daughter was 5 and it took her all of about 2 minutes before she figured out that she could reach her foot from the back seat and hit the ball and make the whole system in the car go haywire. So that vehicle was out for me. But these little balls that are in these spherical systems, or these spherical fields that were in Earth's orbit, would have been able to connect to other spheres and other densities of the lower astral or otherwise, and therefore then manipulate the essence, energy, consciousness, matter, frequency in a human, as an example, or on Earth or in the oceans or anything organic, if it was one that contained the connection to the light side of essence, energy, and consciousness. Now, some of them were strictly for the control of dark matter. Some of them were connected to the consciousness of their bloodlines, I would say their dark part of their consciousness. That's why they believe that the more dark consciousness they had in their brain, hence the programming and the taking them to underground facilities and teaching them to kill at the age of 2 and 3, in their summer camps for kids where they did all kinds of crazy experiments. The reason why they do that is because the more dark consciousness you had in your head, the more these systems could control. Did the humans have any kind of control of that? No, they were just under the impression if they create war, evil things, promote fear, that somehow it powers a computer system. That's what they thought. Or something. There would be a reaction from some kind of alien technology that would be in their favor. Not exactly true, and I'm probably not going to expand much more on that. But to give you an idea, this is what Elon Musk was looking at connecting his Starlink system to just in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe we shouldn't be focusing so much on Elon Musk. Maybe we shouldn't be putting him on such a high pedestal, this amazing guy and all the amazing stuff he's doing for technology. Yeah, well, none of it's for humanity. None of it is for you. He could care less about you. Oh, and another quick fact, there are many, many Elon Musks running around this planet right now. So if you ever wonder, how can he be in like all these different places at the same time? That's because there's many versions of him. God knows what is actually running around calling itself Elon Musk, but is not the real Elon Musk. I do believe the real Elon Musk is still alive, though. So he just needs to be in many locations, but it's not always him, which also, makes sense because he doesn't look the same in most of his photos. It's like, what happened to Elon Musk? Well, now you know. That's what working with the deep state does to you guys. Don't do it. Not worth it. All right. So that pretty much wraps up our podcast episode today. What do you do now? We gave you guys a ton of information. I encourage you guys to do your own research. Search up some of the stuff we talk about. Those pyramids in Alaska. You can search up the LED lighting. Learn a little bit more about this. We encourage you guys to do your own research and not just take our word for it. We want you guys to think critically about everything. Because not thinking critically is kind of how we got into this mess, right? We were just kind of going with the flow, and yes, we were programmed, and I'm not trying to be down on humanity, but now is our opportunity to really take the reins again, and we have to start thinking for ourselves. And if you appreciated today's podcast, I encourage you guys to share this with someone that you care about so we can help encourage them too and let them know about what's happening on our planet. For more information about us, you can subscribe. You can become a member. You can learn more about us at unitednetwork.earth. If you do become a member, you get on-demand access to all of our UNN newscasts, complete world situation reports, and you get access to our original series as well. You can also comment under our videos. Kim and I try to hop on there and answer questions, as we see them pop up. You can join our United Chat, which is our online community, to talk about various things with like-minded people because it is a jungle out there and we have to stick together. You can also follow us on social media. If you want those links, it's at the bottom of our website at unitednetwork.earth. All right. Thanks so much for being with us today, guys. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you found today's information helpful. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.